much for coming out tonight. We have a great show planned for you. I want to let you know that we do broadcast on the internet, and one of the things that people are really curious about is idealcast.com right now is not up. And the reason why it's not up is because we're moving all of the files. Ground Zero Lounge has gotten so big that we have to move all the files to groundzeromedia.org, which is we're going to move it. All part of our growing pains here. We're growing, getting bigger and larger and expanding, and that's what's going on with the Ground Zero Lounge. So in about, I think they said after Valentine's Day, we should be pretty much up to date on where the shows are going, where they're going to be placed at groundzeromedia.org. So if you're needing your fix for Ground Zero shows, then you need to wait and we'll get them for you. In the meantime, we have the shows here, we're presenting them here, and we hope that tonight you'll be enlightened a little bit about what we're talking about. A couple of things I want to talk about before we get into the show. First of all, how many have heard that the new switch to digital is going to happen in June instead of February by applause? Yeah. You know, it's funny, but we talked about that, a couple weeks ago, actually last month. We had talked about that last month, that it was going to be changed, or it was going to be difficult to have that change go on because of the fact that the government wasn't ready, because of the fact that they have to install a few things to make this happen. So, you know, Ground Zero Lounge has definitely given you information prior to the information coming to the mainstream. I remember I was getting all fed up listening to the radio stations and the TV stations saying the changeover is going to happen in February, and it's going to happen in June. I want to call people and say, it's happening in June, it's happening in June. And it just really frustrated me because they didn't want to report that to the mainstream yet. The other thing, too, is that after we did our UFO show last week about UFOs being seen all over the United States and England and places like that, about Gary McKinnon being brought over to the United States for the UFO thing, now we're seeing that in Stephenville, Texas, there are a lot of UFOs that are being sighted again. And so those are some things to be aware of, that when the Ground Zero Lounge talks about things, we talk about things before they end up in the zeitgeist, if you will. And so we hope that you pay attention, you spread the word, you tell all your friends about what's going on at the Ground Zero Lounge. Tonight's show is going to be kind of a spooky show, mainly because of what I'm about to talk about. And many of you have lived through and have heard a lot of what I've talked about before. It's kind of a review, and it's kind of an interesting thing that I want to bring up. It's called Blood Cement, the heart baptism of Abraham, Obama, and Osama. Now, this is kind of interesting because remember we talked about the Amun-Ra show a couple weeks ago. We talked about how words matter. And how when you say certain words and phrases like the inaugural, you need to pay attention to what's being said, and you need to look into what's being said because it means a lot of things for the future. They set the agenda at these get-togethers, at the inaugurals, at the pageantry. They set the agendas for what the future is supposed to be. So, what I want to talk about is what I mean by the heart baptism of Obama and Osama. With the turmoil that's going on in the Middle East right now, especially with Israel, there have been many anti-Semitic web pages gaining popularity, and in them are many supposed Talmudic nightmares that exist. And of course, the protocols of the Elders of Zion are mentioned. They're used as tools to push the agenda of the Jewish conspiracy to rule the world. However, this anti-Semitic, the anti-Semitic sites and their themes only have it half right, okay? There's more to it than this. Because the conspiracy really is about a force darker than can be comprehended, and that it is based in the ancient rituals found in Babylonian magic. And a lot of the things found in the Talmud are Babylonian magic. We talked about Babylonian magic, or the secret schools, if you will, the mystery schools. The magic workings that are being used to corrupt internally what's going on with religions and what's going on with governments, what's going on in politics. All setting us up for what is known as the New World Order. And many people believe the New World Order is here. It's just that a lot of people have not realized it yet, and they're not pushing the revolution to get rid of it. You see, the magical workings that we hear about are jointly produced with elements of all of the religions. The ancient writings that are in such workings can be found in the Talmud, the Quran, the Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bible, the Kabbalah, and the ancient books of Enoch. Now, all powers are to be considered, and all magic is relevance and power. From established religions to cults and secret organizations, from the profane to the sublime, they control that which you hear about, read about, and basically live your life and plan your lives around. Okay? Keep in mind that religions and politics and all these things are pretty much seeded with these magical ideas, or these ideas to get you to move in a certain direction, okay? And that's what we need to address here tonight. Rituals and traumatic events have either been conjured or orchestrated by intelligence cabals in the world. They do that they do that because they want to create a crisis. It's an object lesson in fear. It's to test the faith of you, the people. The people are left with no choice but to bow before the holder of the keys of power, the entity which possesses the tools to combat which is persecuting them. So when you take a look at how politics operate, the setup that we've had for the past 8 years, and what we have in power now, it was all done by design. This was not an accident. This was not something that was just all of a sudden this guy's going to change the world. It was a forced card. It was a setup. That's exactly what it was. In biblical times, when leaving Gentile cities, pious Jews would often shake the dust from their feet to show their separation from Gentile practices. They would say to themselves, we are dusting our feet off. We are basically leaving this city or this village for dead. We are cursing them. We are striking them. We are saying, no more. Okay? This place is so corrupt that we have just let it to basically weed out or become weeded or destroyed or plagued. I mean, it was just one of those things where they felt as though, hey, you're making the wrong choice here. You've made the wrong choices here. We're going to strike you now. We're going to declare that this whole city, that this whole idea, this whole philosophy is dead. We're dusting our feet off. Okay? That was an ancient ritual called dusting of the feet. All right? And that's something that we're going to get to in the end of this show. Talk about what exactly dusting of the feet means. In most cases, the cities were left to plague, drought, and in some cases cataclysmic destruction. It is the occult version of tough love, if you will. Look, if you don't believe what I say, then damn you. Damn your city, damn your way of life, damn your religion, damn your philosophies, damn your Constitution, damn your Declaration of Independence. We are damning you, and you are going to have to pay a penance for your wrongdoing. That is what striking a city, that is what doing what I call shaking of the feet, what is known as the shaking of the feet ritual is. And the reason why they did that was because they figured we needed some sort of a crisis or horrible event to take place in order for people to change their minds. They called it the whirlwind of death. It was to convert the non-believer into a philosophy that they didn't normally believe in. It was a shocking way to bring about change. Traumatic ritual is what it was called. It was constantly being done. Now, a lot of the secrets have been passed down to the wise men and to the shaman, mostly to the people, to the wizards, if you will, the wizards of the day. The wizards and shaman were the men of intelligence, and they were summoned by the king in times of war and times of rebellion to bind the enemies of the empire. One such man, and I've talked about it before, was John Dee. Yeah, somebody yelled out Dee. John Dee was a well-known magician who performed spells as a form of espionage for the queen. His spells were used to bring down enemies of the British crown. He was known as a great mathematician and a great astrologer. He was well-versed in ancient magic, Babylonian mystery school ritual. He was also, in essence, a special agent. How many people know, of course you know, of 007, James Bond, by applause? By a loud applause so we can hear it on the internet. 007 was actually based on John Dee. John Dee was 007. He was the original 007. Dee signed his letters with 2 circles symbolizing his own 2 eyes and indicating that he was the secret eyes of the queen. And then he took a 7 and put it around it. It was to look like glasses. And the 2 circles were guarded by what may be considered the square root sign and an elongated 7. For Dee, 7 was a sacred Kabbalistic number, and he lived by it. John Dee, a magician for the queen, was a secret agent, and he used spells to bind the enemies. An intelligence officer with the queen performing magic. Okay? Now, traditionally, magicians, the intelligence czars, were the agents that were aware of all the rituals, spells, and psychology of the people. And many groups have existed in governments that practice dark arts in order to unite people and bind their enemies. We've all talked about the Nazis and what they used. We also talk about other rituals that our governments use. You've heard of the Bohemian Grove. Exactly, Cyde. I've heard of the rituals that bring about different results, like, for example, there's the cremation of care that we talk about in the Bohemian Grove. And a lot of these things are staged and organized to bring about the New World Order. They're rituals to bring about changes. And these changes are planned on in these areas. Okay? So, good for you. Good night. Okay. I have covered before that there are a lot of cults, death cults within the governments. There's the P2 Lodge, there's Opus Dei, there's CIA, there's Knights of Malta. There's a lot of groups that are just one tentacle in an octopus of conspiracy. Great number of secret organizations which practice death rituals, make death oaths, and many of these groups are part of an octopus whose tentacles reach into organizations, religions, and governments. They're everywhere. The biggest lie the devil ever told was telling you that he didn't exist. Well, these ritualistic groups, these death cultists, exist in some of the secret societies. And a lot of the people that we elect to power are actually members of these secret societies. So they usually act upon what they're told in the secret societies. Leaders from all over the world are members of these organizations. They're considered Luciferian. That means that both members carry out their affairs with no regard for moral imperatives or boundaries. They act on behalf of what is revealed to them in secret meetings. They go and do what they're told to do by powers and authorities in the shadows. They do not speak to a higher authority like God. They have higher authorities that are men that have different ideas, mostly magicians, chaos magicians, causal engineers. These are all people. These are all people that work in the secret enclaves of governments, religions, and several other groups as well. After we have, let's see, I think we skipped ahead one. There we go. In the darkest of secret societal ritual, there is a ritual where the initiate is subjected to witnessing several carefully staged death rites and being told that he or she may be killed too. The initiate, after witnessing several moments of death, is then given a ritualistic rebirth. The initiate is told that since he escaped death, he deserves to make the change into the new life. It is known as the hard baptism, or the forging of the blood cement, or what the Germans called, back in the Nazi days, Blutkeit. Blutkeit was where if you witnessed all of the death that was going on and you were kind of a part of it, you kind of supported it, you can't go after the leader for doing it. Okay? So there's a leader that tells you this has to be done. You follow through with it, and then you don't want to turn in the leader, because if you turn in the leader, you're a part of it too. You worry that maybe you were a part of it as well. That's what the beauty of the ritual is. After the trauma rituals and witnessing or being threatened with ritualistic death, the initiate learns that no matter what you do, you will always have to face the trickster, the dark father. The trickster is what rules you, or Lucifer was what rules you. The dark father of the unseen prison is your master, and you must learn to respect the entity of chaos in order to restore things to a new order. That is the plan of all governments, because most of those people have the rituals telling them that you must succumb to the darker side in order to understand the balance of the good. And with both good and evil, you know that you don't have to act with any kind of care or any kind of morality, because you have reached a goal where there is nothing that can touch you. Go ahead.
I don't know how much it relates to what you're saying, but this reminds me of what Project Monarch did to the children, and how they induced trauma in them.
That's exactly what they did. It is trauma-based rituals to make you feel disassociated. You have two personalities. Everybody has a different personality when they're around their boss. Everybody has a different personality when they're around their girlfriend. Everybody has a different personality when they're around certain people, because they know if they act a certain way in front of that person, they'll get a reward. That's called disassociative activities. There are people that act the same way they do in front of other people, and they don't care. Most of those people don't get ahead in the world because they don't sit there and kiss ass. But see, when you have a government that tells you you must kiss ass or you're going to get your ass kicked, you start kissing ass. That's why here in America you don't see any rebellion going on, because in other countries they're rebelling against what's going on with their bankruptcies and problems. But here in America we roll over and play dead because we're afraid we're going to lose everything. We've gotten ourselves in so much debt, we've got so many material things that we hang on to, that if we decide to stand up against something, we're afraid of losing those things. Losing our homes, losing our families, losing our loved ones. We fear that we're going to lose so many things that we don't act, we don't move, we don't take the confidence and stride to say, listen, we're not going to get kicked around here. That's true. Go ahead and applaud that, because it is true. America rolls over and plays dead because we've allowed ourselves to get so fat and so full of ourselves that we don't know when we're being bent over and fucked. And we're being bent over and fucked in a ritualistic way, and they're using trauma to do that. It's trauma-based. And you know what? You gotta worship a savior of some kind, or you're gonna have financial ruin, or you're gonna have physical ruin, or emotional ruin. You put your faith in something, including your government, including your president, and you end up getting let down. You end up getting betrayed. And the reason why you get betrayed is because you should never do that. You should always have faith in yourself before you have faith in someone else to get you out of your problems. The United States has seen its share of trauma-based ritual, and I'm pointing out a lot of these things. Remember, the killing of the king ritual, which of course is the JFK shooting. You've got the siege at Waco, the Oklahoma City bombing, the first attacks on the World Trade Center, the Columbine shootings, the attacks of September 11th. And of course, the disaster of Hurricane Katrina. All of those things have been trauma-based things. And I'm going to point out to you tonight that they're trauma-based rituals. And you're going to go, how can Katrina be a trauma-based ritual? I will demonstrate how it was a trauma-based ritual. They were all trauma-based rituals with magic rites of death, with numeric signatures, code words, synchronistic events surrounding them. Magic, ritualistic murders that American people have witnessed and have had them repetitively play over and over again to them on television, in movies, in retrospectives. It's all been done over and over. Go ahead.
I wanted to jump in when you're talking about the trauma. As far as reading what happens in the news, in the business community, for instance, here in Portland, I think we aren't as deep into the economy as far as the fall of the housing market.
Oh, we are.
But not as far as the rest of America yet. I mean, Portland is. But yet, we still seem to be, I've noticed that companies that I deal with are more conservative in their business practices because they read the news and think that they are in trouble when they are not in trouble.
Well, what they don't realize, though, here's what you need to know. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We are 120 days from being bankrupt. 46 states in the United States are 120 days from being Chapter 9 bankruptcy. And that is the truth. You won't hear that on the national news. You're hearing it here at the Ground Zero Lounge. 120 days away from financial ruin. Some of you may not get your rebate checks from your income tax. And if you don't believe me, call the people in Arizona, call the people in California. They're not getting theirs. So California, Arizona are bankrupt enough not to give back money from the IRS. So we're 120 days away, plus we have a mayor that's in trouble. I mean, you know, when are the American people going to say, hey, wait a minute, you know, when did we buy into this bullshit of corrupt politicians? Politicians that don't pay their taxes. Politicians that are just, they sell seats away. You know, they're easily bribed. You see, this is traumatic too. We're going through these traumatic betrayals. See, the Kennedy assassination was a ritual because of the fact it was done on the 33rd parallel. It was done and out in the open. It was an execution-style murder. It was what, of course, J. Shelby Downer called the killing of the king, or the ritualistic killing of the king. It was almost like a crucifixion, if you will. You take a look at what happened at Columbine. You take a look at what David Icke has said in the past about the word Cologne and how it represents the doves being slaughtered and the virgins being slaughtered, and Illuminatus speak. The mystery of the dove is a representation of the feminine nature of God and also symbolic of the fallen ones. These are some things that are talked about in ancient writings. You can look them up. I'm not just feeding you a line. When the United States was attacked on 9/11, the 9/11 numeric signatures were mentioned in magic spell books by black magician Aleister Crowley. Talked about 9 is the ending, 11 is the new beginning. He talked about how it's a ritualistic number. 9 and the 11 put together are ritualistic. The mystic secret societal symbolism of the tower being destroyed is also a powerful symbol in all faiths. You take a look at the tarot cards. The tarot cards have a tower. The tower collapses. The tower means destruction. The tower means the end. This is what we see when the tower came down. The 2 towers came down represented the end of an era, the beginning of something else. It was a representation of this. It was a horrible example. I mean, we had destroyed flags and crosses made out of I-beams, all worshipped because of 9/11. Israel had planned a blitzkrieg on southern Iraq. They wanted to call it Operation Shekinah. In early October of 2000, what they were doing is called Shekinah. Less than 1 month before the planned blitzkrieg, planes slammed in the World Trade Center, invoking the same Shekinah, which is a part of a very powerful Talmudic spell. September 11, 2001 was also blamed on Osama bin Laden. Now, Osama is a powerful name that is also spoken of in the text of the Talmud and the Quran. Invoking Osama is literally calling down the spirit of the warrior son of Muhammad. It is the calling out of the jinn. We've talked about the jinn before. It's the calling out of the jinn and allowing them to make war. This could be why we resurrect his name, even though Osama bin Laden is dead. He's been dead for some time now. Yet we still say, hey, we need to get this guy. It's because every time they mention the word Osama, it's a powerful being that triggers war. Also, Operation Shekinah invoked the name of the feminine nature of God again when we had Operation Shock and Awe. It was a play on words. It was carried out on March 22nd, 2003. It was the first day of Aries. The first day of Aries is the sign of the ram, the Abrahamic symbol of the sacrifice that was provided at the altar where Isaac was to be killed. It was all done astrologically and magically correct. It was a ritual done, and the words Shekinah or Shekinah were invoked to bring about the powerful attack in Iraq. Now let's talk about Hurricane Katrina for a minute. We've all talked about the power of the whirlwind, the angel in the whirlwind that Bush talked about, and how the whirlwind known as Katrina basically defined his presidency. On August 22nd, 2005, the last of the Jewish settlements in Gaza were sent packing. And we watched people being escorted out of their homes by armed police officers and military. Hardline protesters didn't want to go quietly. Many of them threw acid at the Israeli troops to try to take them out of their places. Zionist Jews and conservative Christians were against the pullout. They were saying something's going to happen. It may even trigger the wrath of God. It wasn't just the Christians that were worried about the wrath of God. There were many Jewish clerics that worried about it as well. There was one guy by the name of Abraham Shmuel Lewin, who basically said that he was privately aware of some sort of ritual where they invoked the wrath of God, or Shekinah, or the whirlwind, if you will, to come and attack the United States. Because we encouraged the pullout of Gaza with the Israelis. Now, the thing that's really scary about this is that the rabbi that talked about this ancient curse said it's directly out of the Old Testament. Abraham, the father of all the Hebrew nation, was told that if anyone tried to divide the Jews, they would be cursed. Okay? This is an ancient curse. Not just Abraham, but a guy by the name of Obadiah was warned also that if the Jews were ever separated, if they were ever harmed, it would incur the wrath of God. However, we don't know if that wrath will still be, utilized now they're doing what they're doing, which is some bad shit right now. But also remember what happened after the pullout of Gaza. Ariel Sharon, who was the leader of Israel, had a stroke. You never heard from him again, because he encouraged the pullout as well. It was their version of shock and awe. 1 week before Katrina made landfall, Israel carried out the evacuation of nearly 10,000 residents from the Gaza Strip. The last day of the pullout, a tropical storm formed near the Bahamas, and most hurricanes form off the African coast and move towards the Bahamas and then to the United States. Katrina, however, took 72 hours to get to the United States and gain power when it hit New Orleans. It gained power. This is something that's rare, okay? Which makes this storm even more weird. Because it came from an area where storms don't normally come from. It gained more power when it hit the land. It destroyed the southeastern part of the United States. Close to 10,000 Jews were expelled from their homes in the Gaza Strip and parts of northern Samaria. Katrina's death toll was at 10,000. George W. Bush is from Texas and Condoleezza Rice is from Alabama. They were the most vocal in supporting the pullout of Gaza. What happened? Well, Hurricane Katrina hit the states between Texas and Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Coincidence, isn't it? A really, really scary coincidence. America's population ratio to Israel is about 50 to 1. 10,000 Jews who lost their Gaza homes is the equivalent of about 500,000 Americans were reported to be displaced as a result of Katrina. Another coincidence. Also, all the Gaza communities that were being taken out were in the southern coastal region. America's southern coastal region was hit by Katrina as well. The U.S. government called on Louisiana to evacuate their homes ahead of the storm. The Israeli government, backed by statements from officials, demanded the Gaza residents evacuate from their homes during this time as well. It was all the same ritual. And how many people know what movie was playing during the time of the hurricane? The movie that was playing during the time of the hurricane was The War of the Worlds. Now what's really interesting about The War of the Worlds is that while we went to the theaters and saw people being forced out of their homes by aliens, we were seeing people being forced out of their homes by hurricanes, being forced out of their homes by Israeli soldiers. Not only that, but there's a scene where Dakota Fanning says that she has to go to the bathroom. She walks over to this river to take a pee, and what happens? She sees bodies floating down the river. We also were seeing bodies floating down in the floods of Katrina. The strange thing about that is that Steven Spielberg, a well-known Jewish director, had stated that the reason why he wanted to do War of the Worlds is because he said Americans have never in their history had to experience the refugee experience until Katrina. And then we saw people being told that they couldn't go back to their homes and they were forced out because of a storm. In the Talmud, which is what we're talking about here, there are two scriptures that, when written in Hebrew, of the numerical value of 374. They have the numerical value of 374. One scripture found in Genesis chapter 50:17 states, "So shall ye say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the transgression of thy brethren, and their sin, for that they did unto thee is evil." The other can be found in Exodus, where Moses is commanded to split the sea in two and bring the sea upon the land. They're both in the Hebrew gematria, number 374. Strangely enough, if you write out the words Katrina in the Hebrew, it also has a geometric number of 374. Katrina is also a name meaning to purify or to wash clean. Another coincidence. It's kind of strange. It makes you wonder if magic is afoot with this whole situation. Circumstances point to the theory that many of the traumas that we have shared in the world have been the result of dark magic, that the groups within the CIA, the NSA, and Mossad, and other secret organizations carry out rituals using phrases, names, and memes in order to set forth a crisis that can be remedied with control. These organizations are the same organizations that John Dee belonged to. Recently, there was a story that was released regarding the deathbed confession of an agent who said on tape that he participated in rituals and intelligence operations that cannot be described in words to the public. Now, he claimed that these rituals have existed for many thousands of years and that the sole purpose for allowing these rituals to occur is to gain ultimate power. Tonight, what I'm going to do is I am going to play you this deathbed confession of this agent, and you'll get to hear what he has to say about what goes on in those organizations that are without name. Go ahead.
Play it.
Yeah, go ahead and play.
Right. Leave it there. Get up. Out. John, this is the last time you hear from me. Thank you for your friendship, hard work. Thank you for your loyalty. You've been more than just my lawyer. A good friend. I'm asking for one more favor. Do the thing for me. I'm going to tell you secrets. These things are true. To tell people what I'm saying. I want people to know. To confess. They kill me if they knew. Been lying to you all along. That the Wall Street never was lies. Something else. I've been working for a group that has no name. Doing things I've done. I was a past batch that yes, for keeping track of money. buddy. Listen, I can try and explain it, but it is difficult to explain. It's going to be hard to believe. I'm not crazy. You've heard all those conspiracy stories. Jews, Masons, secret societies. Some truth to it. Sounds insane, but I tell you, I've seen terrible things. Listen, Mayan culture, South America, the Bible for the first ones. No one discusses these things. Not to me, Harrington was always talking. He's got up. Even they had the ones that were going to betray higher up. Listen, this is the way things are done. You must have wondered yourself, what the hell is going on here? Why are they doing all this? This is why. Listen to me. Try to understand the blood sacrifices they did down there. Hearts were torn out. Thousands of their own people. You know why they did it? It's the power. The power that has created pain and suffering. There are those who only ultimate power, who decide how things will go. It's part of the strategy. I'll plan. Let me explain. I was pulled in the usual ways, skull and bones, wings and growth. They tell you with us so that you can be useful. I don't know all that much. Transfer power varies your reason and do all the things they do. It's magic, ancient magic, occult practices. You know what I'm talking about? How to explain. Listen, they discovered certain practices that you cannot conceive of. I don't exactly know how it's done. I avoid finding a good stomach. It's an easy task. It's the reason they create war, atrocities, murders, assassinations, genocides. Create a form of power, energy. They use that shit. I don't know how. They go in moves. I know that works. I've seen it. Horrible things. Science. It works. I wasn't involved in that. I just gave them my life. 27 goddamn years. They told me I would be witness to the end. This close. That's huge move. Now look. You know I haven't smoked. Now look what's happened to me. They do this all the time. To punish you. To see it coming, but to have to die now. But too many mistakes of mortal errors. No right to do this to me. I kept my head in the park. They lied. Said there was no problem. Listen, watch. See what happens. Then you'll know I'm speaking the truth. There's no way of stopping them. Both sides know how it works. Terrorists in the third world doing the same thing we used to do. They've already started killing off the earth. It's in the air. It's in the water. Do you understand? When things are the way they are, I can't put it any clearer than that. Gosh help me. It's all true. Can you hear you? Get this goddamn thing away from me.
Anyway, that's a confession that was made by an agent that was speaking to his lawyer. And it's pretty clear as to what's going on. What's going on behind the closed doors, behind in the groups that have no name. Some pretty serious business, serious things going on. I've been trying to convey this to you, trying to tell you that yes, there are things that go on behind closed doors and secret groups. And as I was reading about this confession of this guy, I was reading a passage about a ritual that has been used in many instances using the words Abraham and Osama. Abraham, I've talked about, is the Jewish father, and of course Osama is another interesting name. Now, after investigating the ritual, I found out the names of Abraham and Osama were used before the inaugural as well. And we talked about this when we talked about the Ahmed Raj show. Osama bin Laden actually was in the news pre-inaugural, and his name was invoked to strike up the meme of fear. However, I also realized that after reading that the word Obama is actually Swahili, it's a name taken from the original Osama, which is kind of interesting. Barak, or Barak, was the name of the winged horse-like creature that took Muhammad to paradise the night of his journey. Barak can also mean God's blessing. Obama is Swahili for Osama, who was one of Muhammad's chief warriors. Osama also means the lion. Hussein reminds some Americans of Saddam Hussein, and Obama supporters get upset if it's used. Hussein was the name of Muhammad's grandson. So Obama's entire name is based upon Islamic mythology and African conquest. Barack Hussein Obama means Allah's blessing, Muhammad's grandson, one of Muhammad's finest warriors. That's what the name means. In fact, Barack Obama himself said that he didn't think he'd be president because his name was too close to Osama bin Laden. It came from his mouth. Now, I'm not saying that Barack Hussein Obama is a terrorist, but what I'm saying is you need to pay attention to what these names mean, and when they are resurrected, what they do and what they create, what mimetic signatures they carry. Obama was compared to Abraham Lincoln, and also used Abraham Lincoln's Bible for his swearing-in ceremony, allegedly invoking the name of Abraham. Basically invokes the sacrificial rite of the ram. Aries is the ram, the sign of the ram is Aries. Aries is a time, if you recall, where they did the shock and awe ritual, where they invaded Iraq on the day of Aries, March 22nd. Now keep those things in mind as you're hearing the words Abraham, and Obama, and Osama, and the heart baptism, and the heart blood cement that's supposed to cure. Interesting enough, when Barack Obama was on his way to becoming president, Kenya actually held blood sacrifices in his name, hoping that he would be president of the United States. These are some things that I found as I was looking, and looking about ritual and what it means. Also, the monkey god Hanuman was forged in gold and was also presented to Barack Obama. A gold monkey was presented to Barack Obama. The guy made it saying, I hope that he accepts this idol because he's my idol. He's my God. He's my Messiah. St. Obama candles were sold in San Francisco. Okay? It wasn't a joke, it was serious. This also raises the question, and this is a photo that was just released yesterday, has America been ritualized into believing that Barack Obama is the savior? Look at that picture. I did not Photoshop that. You can ask my girlfriend. I just started learning Photoshop. I don't know shit about Photoshop. Janine will tell you, I'm worthless at Photoshop. I'm getting better though. This is an actual picture that was shot of Barack Obama. Look at the halo around his head. That is not by accident, I can tell you that right now. This is what they're doing. I mean, it's clear what's going on. It's a magical spell. Are we being ritualized into accepting him as a savior? And with the turmoil that is bubbling, are we taunting the idea of catastrophe with the invocation of spirit ritual? Abraham, Osama, Obama, those words being told over and over again. You know, not knowing the names we utter or chant. How many people know about the Barack Obama, Barack Obama? They did that. Stevie Wonder led it with Oprah Winfrey. Barack Obama, Barack Obama. And then they're all chanting his name. Obama, Obama. to that. There's a reason why you chant names. There's a reason why these memes are being set into play. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad president. What I'm saying is it's fucking scary what they're doing to our minds with this shit. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to jump back a bit to the comparison to him and Abraham Lincoln because, again, a true comparison between the two isn't really fair because Lincoln, 20 years before president, as a public servant, gave overtures to would be his presidency 20 years into the future in 1838. What we don't know is what Barack Obama did 20 years ago. To do a true comparison.
Well, we know he was studying in the Middle East.
But
We know that he went back to Kenya, Indonesia, to do his study.
But that would be a truer comparison is what was Barack Obama doing when he was 25 in his late 20s.
I'm sure you could find out. I'm sure you could find out. In the deathbed confession of the guy that we played that you just heard, if it is real, and I believe it is, that is a picture of him, by the way, then what we are to learn from this is that it's compelling to realize that there are powers that are set into motion that cause fear in the populace. The question is this fear used to create an excuse for more controls and more draconian laws? Is the future being made by design through trauma-based ritual? Are the rituals of hard baptism or blood cement and the dusting off of one's feet, as we talked about earlier, the strike of a city, the strike of the United States of America? Dick Cheney and Joe Biden have both said that there's something that's coming. Biden said it before Obama became president, and Dick Cheney said it just recently. He said that there shall come another trauma, that this trauma will result in the deaths of untold thousands of people. Is this part of the ritual too, seeding the idea of death coming? It appears to be a declaration of death. If this continues, it will take root, and as we Americans face another hard baptism of the New World Order, some will be sacrificed for the cause. And you know who said that there'll be sacrifices for the cause? Mr. Barack Obama. Obama's inauguration speech, a call for responsibility and sacrifice at a time of gathering storms. Also, he says, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again with the work of remaking America. Dusting of the feet? Dusting yourself off? Telling a city or telling a country that it no longer has value, that we must reshape it and remake it. Think about what's being said here. I'm not making this stuff up. Everything I talk about, you can look up and find out for yourself if I'm telling the truth. The dusting of one's feet is an ancient ritual. The dusting yourself off is an ancient ritual. Basically saying that everything that we've done in the past, we throw away. We remake it, we redo it, and we reshape it. Or we leave it for dead. We leave it for destruction, plague, and drought. It's an Abrahamic ritual called the dusting of the feet. America is a country that has been struck. The feet have been dusted off. America will have to be repaired and remade. Overt criminality by leaders and passive, unclear thinking by the proletariat has become the norm for the United States. The two go together, creating a symbiotic ecosystem of tyranny, fraud, theft, and murder become widespread, just as the scale of lies told and believed have reached new heights. Irresponsibility has become socialized, while people in the honest pursuit of good get thwarted. The transition from one form of government to another is negligible because of forces we cannot and will not fight against. The American people are not going to fight against these powers. If they were going to, they would have done it a long time ago. They won't until it's right at their doorstep, and then it will be too late. Because by then, the spell is already kicked in, and the forces have already taken over, and the face that they put on this is a new face. But it's the same boss. The new boss is the same as the old boss. And we all say to ourselves, we won't get fooled again. The Who. Yeah. Forgive me for quoting The Who, but I just think it's appropriate right now. A while ago, I had talked with a group of people who were telling me about how there was a group of individuals called the Priory of Zion that were basically a group of men that wanted to put a heretic in the throne. You can call them an antichrist, you can call them whatever you want, but they are establishing a new ecumenical order, and they are putting it together. And there is an article within the Priory that I caught that I want to share with you to end the show, and that is, who and what is in a position to overthrow the invisible force? This is precisely what our force is. Invisible. You don't know. You don't know who's a part of it. You only have what they tell you. You only have what the media feeds you. And you only have what you want to believe. Sometimes things that feel good aren't always good for you. Sometimes things that look good aren't always good for you. Sometimes the cult mentality gets in the way of reality. The community spirit gets in the way of your individuality. And you think that you want to go with the crowd rather than fight against it. It's easier to swim with the current than swim up against it. It's time, people, to pay attention. All these headlines you're reading, they're not affecting you yet, or maybe they are. Maybe some of you have got jobs. Maybe some of you have lost your jobs. But you know, it's a lot worse than just losing the job. It's being denied funds. It's being told you have emergency funds, and then when you apply for them, you don't get them. It's being told that you're not going to get your tax return. It's being told that 3 banks in Salt Lake City, Utah, 2 weeks ago were shut down because they had to reevaluate where their money was going. They took a bank holiday. California's bankrupt, Arizona's bankrupt. Who is going to be the next to file bankruptcy? You see, you got to be aware of these things. I get up here and you may not believe a word that I'm saying, and I don't give a shit if you don't believe what I'm saying. But what I want you to remember, what I want you to know, is that what is talked about here from this stage, it's not comedy, it's not something to be taken lightly, it's fucking relevant. It's relevant because you will see, if you pay attention to the news, a lot of things transpiring that have been talked about from this stage, and is constantly being talked about from this stage for the 3 years that I've been here at Dante's. 2 years prior, I was at Bodacious Classics. Dr. Larry Johnson and I did a show there. I reported on CNN when I worked for CNN. When I worked for Metro News, I also reported these things too, and I got fired for it. I established Ground Zero in 1995, and little did I know that 2 weeks later, the Oklahoma City bombing would be going on, and they would call it Ground Zero. And they would be expecting me to change the name of my show. When I got syndicated nationally as a talk show host in the year 2000, I was on the air, and 3 months prior to the attacks on the World Trade Center, I said that there would be an attack on American soil. I said Chicago. I got in trouble for it. I got taken off the air. But we had it in New York. And they called it Ground Zero. I'm getting ready to go back. I'm determined to go back to terrestrial radio. I'll be damned. But they're going to keep me from reaching my goal. There are powers that are fighting like hell to keep me from doing what I want to do. And by damn, I know that I have support from you all. I have support from the listeners. I have support from Media Monarchy. I have support from Avalar. And I want to publicly thank those people who are in this audience tonight that basically get behind me as well. Thank you. I'd like to thank Frank, who always provides Dante's for us here. I know it's a weird show to start off with karaoke from hell, but it's important that we get this stuff out. I want to tell you that the last time I felt this way, the last time I felt like there were powers out there who were trying to bring down everybody, was prior to 9/11. And people who know me know the crisis that I went through during that time. The crisis isn't that big now because I've gone through some of the worst crises of my life when I had cancer. Facing death is a lot more, I guess you could say, is more of a way to open one's mind to what is reality and what is beautiful and what is great. I want to tell you all that you need to get to know your neighbors. You need to get to know what they can do for you. You need to understand what they do, and hopefully they'll help you if there's a crisis that comes down. We're this close. You may not feel it, but we're this close. I would say, give it that 120 days from now. 120 days from now. And let's see who all's going to be having money, and let's see who all's going to be feeling the pinch. I get to you, but I gotta go. I gotta do the show. I gotta kind of close it down. So, you want to say something quick?
Just real quick about KXL, I was wondering if is there something we can do as an audience to assist you in getting onto KXL, as you mentioned before, and
James Derby, he's the program director. Write him. Send him an email. Tell him that you want Ground Zero on Monday through Friday, if it will help. His name is James Derby at KXL. Go ahead and write him a letter. It may help, it may not, who knows. In the meantime, I'm still sending feelers out because I want my message to get out. And I'm damn determined to fix this. I'm damn determined to go out there and give the message that needs to be given. So I thank you all for coming out and hearing me here tonight. We will see you next week at the Ground Zero Lounge, same time. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
It's getting too late on the show because it's closing, but I thought of something. You're aware of the Australia fight, right?